All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the latest edition of Integrity IT's monthly webinar series. Thank you for your patience as we gave our attendees a few extra moments to log in today. Today we're taking a closer look at Office 365 and all of its surrounding buzz in the industry right now. Whether you come in as a current satisfied customer of Office 365 looking to learn about the other features that it has you can make use of, or the skeptic of Office 365 and everything cloud related that's out there in the industry, we're glad to have you on the line with us today either way. My name is David Renfer. I'm from the sales team here with Integrity IT. We're a top managed services IT provider in the Central Kentucky region, for those who have not heard of us before. Joining me on the call today is Marcus Simpson, my partner in account management here. He, like me, is here to make sure that we're keeping our promises to our existing clients and keeping all of you happy. Also on the call is Joanne Young from our marketing team, and Brian Pryor, our VP of Sales and Marketing, oversees both teams, and perhaps through the two of them you heard about today's call. So we're glad to have you with us today. We'd also love to learn a little bit about not just who's on the call on our end, but where you come from on your end. So we're going to open up the call with a fun poll or two here and give you a chance to steer the direction we take on this call a little bit. All of us who function in a business capacity, whether we're a startup business that's just getting off the ground or a large enterprise organization with several hundred users, we all share a common need to create business documents, spreadsheets, sales presentations, etc., that have a professional appearance. So our opening question to you is, what are you currently making use of to leverage that? And if we could open the poll so that everyone can cast live votes, that'd be fantastic. I'll give everyone just a few minutes to vote on that one. Some of you may be surprised noting that any version of Microsoft Office that is 2007 or older is already end of life, end of support with Microsoft. 2007 itself, there's extended support that some people still have available through October, I believe, but then that one is done as well. Giving people a few moments here. All right. All right, we can probably close that poll out and show some results. Let's see where we stand. Okay, we have quite a few votes for people currently on Office Retail. We have a customer or two who's on OpenOffice or a similar freeware product. We're glad to have you with us. Some older Office champions who've hung on to the classic versions. Glad to have you as well. Excellent. And one other poll question we'll ask you for fun. The struggle is real, we like to call this slide. Every business faces challenges. Hopefully yours are not related to your current business productivity tools. If they are, then today could be a much better call for you than you thought when you logged in. But either way, we have a list of some pain points here on the screen that are common things we hear as a managed services IT provider to many customers out there. And we're curious, are any of these ones that you're running into right now? If they are, feel free to vote on that. Realistically, I probably should have put an all of the above option in this poll. So feel free to let us know where those stand for you, but we're curious to hear how these are impacting your day-to-day right now. Doesn't work on my Mac as a common vote. Excellent. All right. It's great seeing these votes come in. All right. You can probably close that one out. And the poll results show, all right, a lot of people keeping an eye on security vulnerabilities and industry compliance these days. There have been quite a few companies in the news with this, so it's an increased awareness in our industry, to say the least. Some Mac champions out there, we're glad to have you on. Our VP Sales and Marketing is one of those. So files are cloud only. That's just a common thing we hear, especially for those who are using things like Google applications or who've tried it at some point. They realize, well, if it's cloud only, then whenever the internet goes down, no one in my business can do work. So that's a good one out there. All right. Well, we can close that out. The good news is, if these are your points of concern or pain points your business is dealing with right now, you are far from being alone. These are the 10 that we hear the most commonly from our managed services IT client base. And Microsoft reports that across their much larger user base as a whole, they're hearing similar issues. We'll take a look at some of these Here's a few examples. These sound familiar to those of us? Just to name a couple. We need anywhere and anytime access to files and business tools to serve our customers and stay competitive. It was not that long ago that files were on disks and locally in-house, and now there's a large mobility variable in the industry. And we understand that business owners like you rely on technology to give you the edge to compete in your market. If your competitors can only work when somebody is in their building and you can work anywhere, you have a substantial leg up. And being able to respond to customers' needs and access those important business files quickly gives you a big key to success. Another one up here that I like, we need to be using the cloud to our advantage, but saving money along the way. Every dollar does count, and just because it's anywhere available doesn't mean it's necessarily the best solution if it's not cost effective. Zero downtime is a must. There's another popular one up here. We hear this from a lot of our clients in far more than just Office. You really have a common complaint that people say, I feel like I spend more time managing my technology than I do having my technology work for us. And we want to make sure that that's not the case. So given all of these challenges that are in our modern business era, we're all commonly looking for technology that meets the needs of our business. In keeping with that, to look specifically at the challenge of mobility, this is rapidly changing the landscape in nearly every business industry that we interact with as an IT provider. We're all to this bring your own device revolution that's happening. And it's not just limited to people bringing their personal phones and personal tablets to work, expecting to use those to be productive. We're also seeing that employees are increasingly blending the use of personal technologies to do work as well. Especially information workers, people who are on the go, who are in the field, they're typically the earliest adopters of this blend of work and personal technologies, and there's a growing desire to utilize things that are familiar, that are friendly to them, targeted to their workspace. So to better serve these workers, really as IT departments or as executive level decision makers, we look at this and we need to find ways to introduce tools that are easy to work with, that are familiar to them, but that are secure in our modern day and that are compliant with our industry standards, our internal governance controls, and things that are manageable, because we don't want our data to just be out there anywhere. We'd like to be able to retain some measure of control and security over that. So here's one statistic that we saw that was astonishing, and this is actually as of a survey in 2012 from Forrester Group. 61% of information workers blend work and personal usage across the set of devices that they're using, which means things are intermingling and not the most secure. And in fact, the number was slightly higher. They blend work and personal in 66% of the software that they use as well. Again, that's as of 2012, the rapid growth curve already in place at that point. 53% of global information workers reported using their own PC or smartphone, an unsupported web or internet site, or an unsupported software to help improve their productivity and keep up with what they feel are the demands at work. Also, mobile devices, as of 2012, already accounted for 13% of all internet traffic globally across the World Wide Web. As of 2010, for comparison, that number was only 4%. So in 24 months, that increased 11% at what appeared to be an exponential growth curve. The problem is, as mentioned, many of these solutions that are available in the space, they fall into areas where there's not great organizational control. Corporate data is now housed in an external system. How do I have visibility of this? Who has permissions to what? How can I maintain that? If an employee leaves the organization, is my corporate data still out there? And how do I make sure that it's not mishandled or that it's drawn back? Data loss, whether it's inadvertent or intentional, are a real risk. Corporate policies surrounding information governance, they're rather difficult, if not impossible, to enforce when employees are bringing personal solutions and personal devices into the space. And as a result with that, data theft and compliance and regulatory issues can quickly follow behind it. IT really can't meet these compliance and security mandates or these difficulties if we have no control over the solution. So we don't want employees to feel crippled and incapable of doing what they need to do for work. We want them to feel empowered, but we have to do it in a way that is compliant. The good news is To keep it plain and simple, Office 365 solves that. It solves a lot of these issues. With the latest releases that Microsoft has in Windows 10 and in Office 365, we've seen as a managed services IT provider that Microsoft did a great job with listening to feedback and frustrations in the industry. This new product stack has been highly successful rollout from our perspective at all the clients where we've used it so far, and so we're hosting webinars and other initiatives like today to make our clients aware of it. The Office 365 solution is your familiar Microsoft Office, but it comes with improvements. It's not this mystical cloud thing that is commonly perceived in the industry. So when I say familiar Office, first and foremost, just to say it, we mean there are the full, locally installable Office applications that you're familiar with: Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, things of that sort. With Office 365 in the business class, you get the most up-to-date version of these desktop apps just like you always have. And they come with new feature rollouts in them, just as is typically the case whenever Microsoft releases a new Office version. But in addition to these desktop apps, you also get Office apps that work on your tablet and on your smartphones for viewing and for editing on the go. And if you ever forget your laptop or accidentally leave the tablet out in the car when you're going up to that presentation, you also have Office Online. Your files can reside in the cloud as well as the applications. You can log in through a secure channel via any web browser, and you can actually work in a version of the Office applications that's in the cloud. And this is more so for mobility offices, but that can be a great win. And lastly, we have Hosted Exchange, which is an option here. Classic Office, you effectively had an on-premise mail server, and if you have that, Outlook can integrate with it. If not, you have to link to whatever other solution. Many industries and many companies didn't resort to having their own email server in-house because it's simply not cost-effective. And with Office 365, you can have Exchange in the cloud without having to have an on-premise server. We'll talk more about that in a little bit here, but that gives you every bit of the option that you would see with Exchange normally. All of your email, your spam filtering, encryption options for those of you who are in industries keeping an eye on PCI compliance and HIPAA compliance. You can have a custom domain name for your business, since modern browsers are blocking your @Gmails, your @Hotmails, your @Yahoos, a lot of those base template addresses, since those are much more commonly linked with phishing and scams and malware nowadays than previously. And finally, as mentioned, with Office 365, you get up to 1 terabyte per user of OneDrive for Business online storage space, so that you can safely and securely store your files out there and share them with people both inside and outside your organization. There's space you can acquire with this for shared team file space, and we'll talk about that. But on the whole, this is a plan that's very easy to set up. License management is much better than it's ever been. For those of us who've been around ever since the cardboard boxes where you had to keep it from the store that had the license key on the side of it, we're a far move away from that space. So in terms of the familiar Office, as always with Office 365, you get the familiar installable Office on your laptop, your desktop, your PC, with all the best-in-class Office tools that you're used to. And with these, the features that are automatically updated over time will propagate right down to your machine. Also, as mentioned, one of the big new advantages is your applications that worked on desktop and laptops now work on tablets and smartphones as well. And you don't need different licensing for every one. This is a common pain point that we as an IT provider and that many of our clients run into, is that in the classic Office retail model, I need a separate license purchased for every single device, every desktop, every laptop, every machine. If a machine dies, I have to go buy another license. If a user leaves my organization and the license was bound to them, I have to go buy another license. It's extremely frustrating. In the new model, you can have one user license that gives a single user Office on up to 5 of their devices. So if they have a mobile, a tablet, a desktop, a laptop, and some 5th device, you only need one license for that user's full myriad of devices, which is a great cost savings. Also, by simply logging into your Office account online, you can access and edit the most up-to-date version of your files real time. Anything happens, like you spill coffee onto your laptop or you leave the tablet somewhere by mistake, log in securely and keep right on going. Another nice add that happened with Office Online is that you now can share the documents you have with people inside and outside your organization, and you have an option for live file collaboration. And this is a big change that Office didn't have before, and a great win that several of our clients have talked about and have enjoyed. So this gives you access to Outlook web app as well. For those who are familiar with that, if you're ever out on the road, you can securely log into your email server, just as if you're in the building, and get your mail there. And as more options are rolling out for Office Online in future releases, you get access to those. So to specifically mention the hosted Exchange that we talked about, in a classic model, you need a Microsoft Exchange server in-house in order to have your own business email. Now, this is hardware, warranty, licensing costs, software, staging it, maintaining it ongoing, and you need to have user-specific licenses for every user in your organization. It gets costly, and many of those in the small business space said this isn't cost-effective for us. What they give with Office 365 is an option to have hosted Exchange, where you can have the best of both worlds. You get no hardware, no local systems to maintain, but you get all of the rich features of Microsoft Exchange, your global address list, calendars you can share between employees in the organization, contacts that you can save, tasks and reminders, things like that. You can also, with small add-ons, have a custom domain name for your business so that you can have your specific suffix on that and look a little more professional in the space, as well as spam filtering and email solutions, as we mentioned. Those are things that we can apply to it. A nice win from the perspective of compatibility is that this is quickly ceasing to be a pain point for our clients, and here's why. The shift that Microsoft is making with Office 365 is moving from a retail model to a subscription-based model. Now, what that means is instead of this being a one-time expense up front, there's a monthly subscription that your business signs up for at a very low cost per user, less than $1 a day per user. And as a result of that, there are no future versions. So any of us who have ever been one of those large projects where I have to upgrade the entire office from an old version of Microsoft Office to the next one, and then doing go live support with all of my users, did anything break? Those are discussions of the past now. And the reason is that it will simply be patches and updates which happen to Office 365. So as new features are developed by Microsoft, you don't have to go out and buy a new version. Those simply download in. Your Office Online auto updates. Your local installed application can update, and you keep right on going. So there won't be versions anymore. Microsoft speaks of this as the final version of Office because their hope and their goal is to maintain this model moving forward. And it's seen a lot of success in the industry. There's already more than 1.3 billion unique Office 365 users, so it's seen large-scale adoption across many industries. And in keeping with that, again, you'll never be out of date. You don't have to do these large-scale background updates. There's no versions. Everything comes down cloud-based for those who are Office Online, and you can get updates locally as a user. So this is a great win. I see good questions coming about this. Excellent. Feel free to keep asking questions in chat over the course of the webinar, by the way. Our team's glad to field those. If you see things that you're curious about, we're glad to have you. Feel free to ask those along the way, and we'll have some Q&A space at the end. So some we'll type in there in chat, and some we'll speak to specifically. Feel free to keep those coming. Here's one example of product progression within the Office 365 suite. OneDrive is a new member, relatively new member of the Microsoft Office package, giving each user, as we mentioned, up to 1 terabyte of online file storage and options for shared space within your team available as well. It began as SkyDrive, which some of us saw. It was a little bit more of a prototype from Microsoft, saying, is this really a model that businesses will be excited about? And as you can see, over the course of time, between August 2013 and now, more and more new features have rolled out for that. And now in the OneDrive branded space with Office 365, as more of these come down the pipe, these are not things you're paying for additionally. These are things that are a part of your Office 365 subscription, and your team simply gets access to those whenever those improvements happen because you're on, again, that monthly subscription model. Now, as an advantage of that monthly subscription model, this is the one that the CFOs in the room are going to like. You can convert this from a capital expense to an operating expense on a dollars and cents level. That gives you some great advantages financially and in your taxes. There's significantly improved license management. Microsoft, in the classic retail model, as we mentioned, you had to buy a separate license for every single user, every single machine, and those were somewhere around $229 per user, which is pretty pricey. Whenever the lifespan of that device went away, you needed a new license. Whenever that user went away, if the license was bound to a specific user, you needed a new user license, and it was a frustrating experience for many of our clients. Microsoft's model got a little bit better when they introduced what was called the open volume licensing program. That shifted it so that licenses were now bound to an organization rather than to a computer or to a user. But again, the price point there was almost $380 per user license, and it simply wasn't cost effective for most businesses. With Office 365, we feel like Microsoft is finally hitting the mark here. It's at a price point that, as mentioned, is less than $1 a day per each user's access. And since it's a monthly subscription model, your company can transfer licenses back and forth as needed. It's much simpler from a single portal to manage all of this rather than all those cardboard strips with license keys and this email and this person's confirmation and the myriad of sources you used to have to maintain. Microsoft Office has also gotten some rep in the community about the earliest days of Office 365 going live and people wary of everything cloud and will the uptime really do well. And so they've actually placed into the wording of Office 365 a financially backed 99.9% SLA. And what that means is if Microsoft does not maintain that level of uptime in their solution, users are guaranteed to get a part or whole of their monthly fee refunded. So Microsoft is putting their money where their mouth is fairly boldly with this new solution. As a result of that, as mentioned, there's over 1.3 billion adopters, unique Office 365 users globally already, where Office has been rolled out with quite a level of satisfaction. And there's a link online at products.office.com where you can see case studies of particular companies, some of which are here on the screen, where they talk about not just did they go to the solution, did it work well, are they happy, but more specifically, how did this impact our business? How did this help our mobile workers? How did this reduce cost or improve profits as an organization because we could do things that we formerly could not do? Some great case studies there and a filter that allows you to select things specific to your industry to see how did this help others who are in my exact workspace. So I would encourage you to view that at any time. On a more local level, here are some of the satisfied customers, just a very small group of the many that we've worked with who have already moved on Office 365, and several of these have been extremely satisfied with the changes they've made. So these are customers that we're glad to work on referrals if any of that would benefit you. And yes, you could obtain licensing anywhere, but the value we bring, in our opinion, is that we bring consulting to the table. We help companies look at what's the best model for us and then walk you through the migration, the implementation, the go live, being available for your user team, and ongoing local support, which is a great advantage for you. So in terms of Office 365 plans, there's a lot of information out there online. We wanted to try to get it down to a single screen and keep it a little easy for you. Most of our clients make use of the business plan or the business premium plan that you see there on the left. These give you all of the locally installed applications of Office 365, as well as access to a varying degree of the other features which your company can look at and say, which of these do we need and not need? And again, part of the value we bring to the table as Integrity IT is that we really view ourselves as your consulting service, as you're looking at this decision to say, is this cost effective for us? Is this the best decision for our company? If so, what model makes sense for the needs that we do and don't have? And our team from the sales side and from the account management side, we're both glad to come over and meet with you, talk this through with you, and help you make a great decision for your team. So we wanted to pause here and have a bit of a Q&A time. This is a lot of information to talk through, and we're glad to field any questions your team may have. Some of these we may hear and we may say, These are questions that would be best answered in an in-person meeting, assessment of your specific organization. Some of them may be questions that we can field right here live on the call that we feel will benefit all of those who are in attendance. So if you would, feel free to make use of the chat window space and type in any questions you may have, and we'll see if we can speak to those for a moment. I know Brian Pryor and Marcus Simpson are on the other end, and I believe they're unmuted, so they can read some of the questions as they're coming in and speak to those.
So yeah, we're here just waiting for some questions. I want to thank David for putting this information together in a concise way. I would like to say we have carefully watched Office 365 over many years, wondering where Microsoft would truly take it, and we've progressed slower than a lot of companies in fully recommending the product, but we believe it's finally at its height of its maturity to where we would trust it with those that we consult with. Again, like David said, there's many different levels. It can be very confusing to navigate those levels. There's often a lot of debate even here within our own group at times about what is included in which package, from the business to the enterprise class. Now, the enterprise class, for example, we've got a customer who only has 20 users, but they bought the E3 package, which comes with just about every feature available, and that was because of compliance. That was for digital rights management. That was a higher level of SharePoint services that were needed, and so therefore it made a lot of sense for them to use that package. There are discussions about Skype for Business being available in it. That is one of the components we're still a little bit cautious about, as we've seen VoIP in the cloud be a very risky move at times. So, but it is included, and often we have companies trying it out. So we're slowly making our way into that realm as well. So again, it's a very confusing model at times, and this slide that you see on the screen right now is our best effort at combining all the plans down into a simple one-page screen. This is something we'd be happy to share with you as well if you're interested. So we're still waiting for some questions to come in, and we'll poll those at this time. And I believe we have a very quiet audience today. David, either you answered all their questions really well, or we have missed a major component.
All right. Give it just another moment here in case some questions come in.
So one issue you might be asking, I know we talked a little bit about an on-premise Exchange server versus Microsoft Office 365. It is possible to just get the applications and solve all your application nightmares at a lower cost package. And it is a viable option for some companies to go more with the hosted Exchange piece. And usually what we see is there's a break-even point, and at different times we've calculated that out to be around 40 to 60 users depending on the company. Again, that can vary based on specific needs. If you have a lot of in-house email integrations from business management systems or printers or scanners that need to interact with your email services, sometimes the cloud needs to be a little bit more careful of a hop. So again, we evaluate those conditions as well with each of our clients who start looking through these models. So we've got one question here. How can I load up my contacts from my phone?
I can field that one. So To speak to that, yes, we do offer migration services from whatever platform you're currently on over to Office 365, whether that's local email or hosted email, a POP email solution, which is kind of the cheaper grade of online email to hosted exchange. And with that, we can offer assistance to users with moving local Outlook data, whether that's PST files for local email or some contacts people have on their phones. We do have some automated tools available for assisting with that migration for a company. It takes a little bit of a closer look. That's one of those good examples where we would want to do a discovery with your team to figure out what are the peripheral pieces of a migration that we would need to do well, but we do have experience with doing that, and we can assist there. I also
and then
see
those, David, those personal contacts could then be moved into what is often referred to as a public folder within an email server domain.
Yes, absolutely. I also see one question here. Will Office 365 work in a terminal services space? Yes, it can. There's a bit of a workaround that Microsoft approves for installation and for licensing compliance. It's a longer answer than a short call can give. But yes, there is a way of making use of that sort of monthly subscription model, but still being terminal services friendly, and we can talk about that more in person if that benefits you. All right, that's all the questions I'm seeing. Are you seeing anything there, Brian and Marcus?
About HIPAA compliant. You want to address that?
Yes.
One?
Yes. There is a form of Office 365 that's HIPAA compliant, and we can speak to that. In specific, one of the HIPAA compliance pieces we see is email encryption. That's actually a peripheral service that we have that we use with many of our healthcare IT clients, and it links up perfectly with Office 365. Some satisfied customers on that. So it's a small peripheral that gets appended to the actual Office 365 platform, but it works fantastically well. We have several practices here and hospitals here in the area that make use of it in varying degrees, so glad to show that.
Okay. We have another question. Does Office 365 back up my files, or do I need to go to a third party for full backup of files?
A great question. The short version that we like to use is that the OneDrive is what's called replication. It means files you have and the files that are in the cloud can be in both places, but effectively if either one is corrupted, that corruption will mirror, will replicate to the other. So it's not intended to be a form of backups. It will work in the event that if you lose your device or your computer dies or whatever, your files live in the cloud, but it suffers a vulnerability in the case of corruption or local malware, things like that. So we would still recommend having a backup solution as a separate entity, but that's one of those cases where we can look at it a little more closely to say, is there a way of making one thing work for both? And we can assist with that in the discovery process.
And there are services that will back up an Office 365 organization.
Yes.
And there are even services, if you would like, you can back up that Office 365 information back to an on-premise device.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we thank everyone for joining us on the call today. Glad to have you and glad to follow up with you with any other questions that may emerge. Again, our team is here to assist you. We're glad to assess some of your requirements as some of these questions we're speaking to. If you are interested in this but have specific points that you want to make sure Office 365 can handle, pull us in. We'd be glad to have the conversation with you and to really look together with you as to, is this the right decision for our company? But thank you for joining us today, and have a great afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, thanks all.
Thank you.